This is TWiT.
It's like TikTok. It's like as the Trump presidency winds down, I wonder, there's these little things kind of hanging out in the world, like TikTok was supposed to be shut down. I don't think it's going to be shut down. Although maybe now that it banned the president, it will be. I don't know. I also feel like all of the attacks on Section 230, they've just kind of gone up in smoke. Even Ajit Pai, the current chairman of the FCC, on his last days, has said, I'm not going to do anything about Section 230. Section 230, as some have said, is the 23 words that created the internet. 60 Minutes did a piece on it a couple of weeks ago that was completely wrong. Got it completely wrong, which is a shame. If you want to know more about Section 230, read Mike Masnick's Tector, where he explains what it means. But it is really very simple. It means that, well, there's really two parts. No provider or user of an interactive computer service shall be treated as the publisher or speaker of any information provided by another information content provider. In other words, you can't be sued. Twitter, Facebook can't be sued for anything other people post. I can't be sued for things people post on my chat room. I can't be sued for things people post in our forums or comments on our webpage. Even though I run those sites, I'm not liable for what people post there. If you got rid of that, I'd have to take the chat room down. I'd have to take the forums down. I'd have to take comments down because I don't want to be liable for something somebody says on those sites. I think it's pretty clear we need Section 230. Is it at risk? Anybody have any thoughts on this?
I don't think it's at risk at all. I think we should cut through some of the bullcrap, which is that the Republicans have been threatening to revoke Section 230 because they don't like the way they've been moderated. And that's why you see every time there's a label put on Trump's tweets, back when he was able to tweet, he would tweet Section 230, revoke Section 230, because they didn't want the platforms to be touching their stuff.
But that was a complete misunderstanding of what 230
Yes, exactly. Total misunderstanding. But they know, they're lawmakers. They know exactly what the law, maybe except for Trump, they had a good idea of what that law was supposed to do. The threat of revoking it was supposed to intimidate these platforms to not touch their content. Because, like you said, if Section 230 went away, you'd have to take down their chat room. It's not a pretty world for if you're Facebook or you're Google and Section 230 is gone. And now all of a sudden, you're liable. You're liable for everything that's posted. So essentially, this was a toothless death threat that people who didn't like the way that these companies were moderating content, that was like what they would hold above their head. But now we're moving into a world where the Democrats control the White House, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. And you'll note that very few of them have come out and said we need to, either revoke or amend this law. So for the next 2 years at least, but probably longer, there is not a high likelihood of anything happening to 230. And honestly, I feel sometimes like I'm the only person who's like, this is actually a good law because you shouldn't hold companies liable for, what's said by other people on their forums online, assuming that they, do some form of good faith content moderation to keep, illegal things like child porn off of their sites.
In fact, it gives you the right to moderate as well,
exactly,
which is really important. You don't want to take away Twitter's right to moderate.
Exactly right. And so, to me, I think that we're about to see the end of this bad faith use of holding Section 230 over these platforms' head to have them lay off the partisan, either party's messaging. I think that's over.
Yeah.
May I vehemently disagree with what Alex just said?
Oh, good. Yes.
Of course.
We found somebody who hates Section 230.
He said when he said Democrats, basically don't care. I'll tell you two Democrats who have come out and said in one case that he would repeal it completely. That is the president-elect.
Yes.
Biden specifically called out 230 for repeal. And the soon-to-be vice president led a campaign in California a cynical campaign in California to carve a giant hole in Section 230, charging people with things she knew were legal, despite.
Oh, I did not know about this.
Yeah, I'll send you some info on that. I think the Democrats are.
This was when she was
anything more
state
likely
AG.
to poke a hole in it than the Republicans were, because Alex is absolutely right that the Republicans had no idea what it did or purported not to. But I think the Democrats are at least as big a danger in this case. And the thing that's important to keep in mind, this is not a law written to protect Twitter and Facebook and Google, which didn't exist at the time the law was written. It's a law written to promote free speech. That's the point of the law, and we keep losing that in the debate that's not really a debate. So I'm exceedingly worried, and we almost lost it this time because of. It can easily be tossed into some omnibus legislation because Congress doesn't pass like individual laws anymore. I think we're in real danger, and very soon.
Harris
real danger of what?
Losing it.
Of Section 230 being repealed or gutted.
Harris, when she was California Attorney General, was going after the revenge porn industry, which honestly is a good thing, but
something
the way
worth going after.
Yeah, but the way she was doing it was to peel away the legal protections that keep online platforms immune, and that was misguided, to say the least. It was the wrong direction to take. Even though it was a popular position, a position I agree with, I think that's the wrong way to go about it. I believe that Biden's anti-230 comments were offhand, and Jeff Jarvis says that he's talked to people who have been advising the Biden transition, that they have talked with him and explained why that's a bad idea. So it remains to be seen. I think both Harris and Biden, clearly acted against 230 in the past, but let's hope cooler heads prevail.
Yeah, that's my response to Dan. I think there are things you say as a candidate, and then it's a completely different ballgame when you're actually there at running the country and you speak with, your congressional leaders who have been doing something different or taking a different tune.
Is it reasonable to say, as some have said, well, that's obviously we don't want to repeal it, but maybe it needs to be fixed, strengthened? What? How would you strengthen it, Amy?
So again, the central challenge we have in our democracy is that our laws are not responsive, meaning we can't recalibrate them. We have to create a new law to mitigate the problems in interpreting that law given the changing So and our system is set up to not have a lot of gray area, and you want to know what's acceptable and not acceptable. So if Section 230 doesn't exist or is weakened in some way, and also everybody wants the big tech companies to be broken up or to create a situation where there is profound competition, meaning there are lots of niche, microsites and lots more distribution of content, then all of those brand new organizations become vulnerable because they're going to be tiny. They're not going to be lawyered up. And if somebody tries to sue them, So
Facebook is in other words, Facebook is a little bit safer.
Facebook's fine
because it has
totally
enough resources to fight those kinds of actions. It would be all the startups trying to replace Facebook. That's
exactly right, Mike. So again, we can't look at any of these issues in a vacuum. We have to look at all of these as levers that, the push-pull of the levers on how our democracy works, because all of these repealing, not repealing, strengthening, weakening, they all have these reverberating next order effects, which could impact some of the very same things that people are fighting over at just adjacently related areas.
Well, trust me, if this comes back to haunt us, we will be talking about it and fighting to save it, because I'm of the opinion that without 230, it'd be very hard for us to go forward. And we'd certainly have to shut down all public comment on all the things we do, and that's a big deal. Because unlike Mark Zuckerberg, I can't really afford to fight a lawsuit.
It's a really important point that you and Amy make. When we had GDPR roll out, there was this view that it was going to apply equally. But of course, the bigger tech companies are the ones that had the amount of resources necessary to be able to comply with that law. And that's privacy law in Europe. So what you ended up having was, Facebook and Google worked fine in Europe. But if you try to go to some of the local news sites or smaller news sites, they just shut down in Europe because they couldn't operate there. So considering the second order effects here is extremely important, and I'm glad we've discussed it.
Yeah. If new laws entrench the people that we're worried about, that's obviously something to reconsider.
The opposite of what we've been talking about on this show. Yeah. Somebody said I should start twit.ru. That's not a bad idea. I know.
You can go over with Parler to the Alley Cloud servers.
Actually, we had a very irate person who was, I think, kicked out of chat. He said something stupid about George Floyd and was kicked out of chat, which we have every right to do, and Section 230 protects us. He said, I'm going to sue you. I'm going to sue you. I'm going to sue you. I said, dude, go ahead, because of Section 230. If there's no Section 230, I have to take that very, very seriously. And so no more banning in chat. No more. None of that. Everything goes. Oh, boy. I would shut it down immediately. Actually, I've already taken... I shouldn't admit this. I've already taken steps to distance chat. We no longer run the server. It's not on our servers. It's community run, which is good. So I'm putting it at arm's length, and it's partly because of that. I don't.
Are you talking about the IRC?
Yeah. I love them, but I don't want to go to jail for it.
Yeah.
I mean, it just goes to show you that running a forum or running a business
scary.
with user-generated content is probably one of the more difficult things that you can do on the internet. We talked about, how do we get, Mark Zuckerberg or Jack Dorsey to do the right thing or make their platforms a place where everybody can, come together and be happy. But once you start to run a forum like that, Leo, right, you realize it's easier said than done.
Do you have a forum, Alex?
I mean, I have comments on my Substack newsletter, and they become active at times. I just banned someone for the first time this week, and I sort of went through the same thing where it was like, wait a second, this is my, it's my living room here on the internet, and you're calling me a liar. So
I've always felt that way. Yeah.
So see
ya. And that is not illegal. I mean, you have the right to ban people, to kick people, to censor people. But they also have the right to sue you if you don't have the immunities Section 230 provides you.
Yeah, so here's to that law.
Here's to 230. I'll drink to that.